Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another glorious episode of the Tattoos and Toddlers podcast. And I told y'all season 2 is just so much fun. And for whatever reason this week, I've been talking to a lot of my Clubhouse friends and really thinking about them. So if y'all don't know, some of us were locked in our houses for a while. We were incessantly talking on Clubhouse for hours and hours and hours. And all of a sudden I met all these amazing wedding pros. It was awesome. So I have a very special guest today, one of my Clubhouse friends. Autumn, welcome to the podcast. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, we got to meet in Nashville, which was amazing. And
Yes.
my cousin actually lives in Nashville, so it was a cool little getaway. But then I ended up, also carving in a little bit of time to go out to dinner with my cousin and reconnect there because I don't get to see her very often. So yeah, we got to meet there and had fun, and it was super, super hot because we
Yeah.
decided Nashville in August was like the best time to go. I'm like, what did we just do?
And I was like, sure, I'll set up a styled shoot with Natalie. I love her stuff. And then we're
Right?
melting outside.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was so hot.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Yeah, so I am a wedding and event planner. I've been in the events world for oh gosh, 20-ish years,
Oh
I
my
think.
gosh.
Um and I started out just kind of doing small like fundraising events specifically for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Um, and I kind of always wanted to do events, but I was also told that that wasn't like really a real career. So yeah, I just kind of started out doing that. And then when my husband and I moved further south in Michigan, um, I got a job at a venue, and then from there, really kind of just fell in love with doing events. And so I worked at the venue for about 4 years before starting my own business. And then I started my wedding planning business in 2018 and pretty much had to quit the venue like within the first few months of starting it. Like I already had 3 clients booked before the end of the year. So
Yeah, so you just kind of like snowballed into this. You started it and then you just kind of kept on going. And then it led you to right now, right? You're doing your thing. And that's another thing I loved about all of us various wedding pros getting together is that we're all from different states, we're all from different backgrounds, we're all doing different things. Like I'm a photographer, but there's like a gazillion different ways that photographers do their business. And what I've found out so far, which is so funny that I feel like I get along with planners really well. I don't know why, but it's like I guess because I admire all the things that y'all do that I know I can't handle, and I admire the things that y'all have to do. You're designing, you're coordinating people, you're dealing with all different kinds of things that I don't normally have to deal with on the wedding day. But my job is to go photograph the things that y'all have done.
I know. I feel like photographers and planners have a very like unique relationship compared to the rest of the team. Um, like as planners and designers, like we have the utmost respect because if it weren't for y'all, I mean, I take some photos with my phone, but they are not like
No.
I would not be using those for advertisement under any circumstance. So like I mean, really, if it weren't for y'all, then we wouldn't be able to showcase our work. But then also, like, I feel like there's this interesting dynamic where like I tend to lean on the photographers a lot when I'm doing my timelines and like
Yes.
really just like making sure that they have the correct amount of time for the photos that they need and trying to schedule detail shots and when does it make the most sense. And so I feel like photographers and planners probably work together the most in terms of like trying to make the day run smoothly.
Yeah, and I love that. I love seeing that relationship not only in other people that I watch, but occasionally, when I get to work with planners and coordinators of any kind that actually has a timeline in front of me, I'm excited about that because it helps me stay on track too. Because, as an artist, I might go in there and go into la la land and forget my time and space altogether. but somebody like you and who keeps the timeline going helps me kind of like come back to earth and say, okay, now it's time to go to this next thing that we need to do.
Right,
Which I
exactly.
love that. So when you started, I know you have kiddos, and when you started, did you already have a family, or did you start a family like before, after, during you're starting this, ride through this, start working for somebody else, then work for yourself kind of momentum there?
Yeah, so when I started my business, I already like my family was complete.
Yeah.
Um I had my oldest 2 kiddos really young, like right out of high school. Um so they were a little bit older, but then my husband and I had our 2 youngest kiddos. Um and they were still pretty young when I started. Like my son would have been, I think he was like 6, maybe 7,
Wow.
around that age. Like he was like kindergarten, 1st grade kind of age when I first started my business. He's my youngest. So yeah, they were still pretty young. And like I found out last year because I was doing mostly like corporate events last year and I was traveling a ton.
Yeah.
And I missed out, like, on football games and, like, my
Mhm.
daughter's cheer stuff and, like, all of that stuff, and so, um, as much as I was I was putting it out in the universe, I would love to travel more for events, um, but I maybe should have been a little more specific about putting that out into the universe of, like, what I really wanted because
Oh,
it
yes.
definitely turned into, like, way too much. I mean, like, my daughter's gonna be a senior this year, and I don't wanna, like, miss out on all that stuff that she's gonna have this year, and then, like, my son is old enough now that he's gonna be in, like, the real sports, with, like
Oh,
that's through the
yeah.
school and all of that, um so, yeah, I am thankful that I had that opportunity, but also, like, it made me realize that, I maybe should, like, slow down a little bit, like, and, I mean, I'll travel some, but not, like, across the country for 10 days at a time, so
And I appreciate that you brought that up too, because I was just talking about this yesterday, and this is why I love organic conversation, is because I was sitting there and somebody who doesn't even know me, and I'm telling them that I want to be here for my kid and I want to have just enough work that satisfies my soul, that helps me feel like I'm connecting with my fellow couples that are getting married, and they're in love, and I want to support them. And then also I want to be back home to support my husband and my kid, because I was like, well, they mean a lot to me too. And I think one of our deepest conversations last night was literally like, how do we honor everybody in our life? How do we make them and continue to make them a priority? And I think that's a pretty hard, humbling conversation if let's say you're the kind of person who wants to go out there and do all the things, and you can, but it's like, what impact does that have on your priorities at home? Have you ever struggled with something like that? I know you just gave me a really cool example of, you're like, oh, I wanted that thing, but now I'm not so sure I want the thing in the way that it presented itself. Is there something we can dive into as far as how your priorities may have changed as your kids grew up, as we have one set of older kids, one set of younger kids? Is there any time in your career and home life where you're like, oh, we need to readdress some priorities here?
you know, um, as cheesy as this might sound, COVID really did show me,
Ooh,
um, priorities and what they should be and where I feel like my own personal goals set.
yeah.
Um, my definition of success changed, like,
Oh, yeah.
uh, that whole, like, idea of hustle culture and how if you're not working 90 hours a week, then you're, like, not doing all you could do, and you should be, giving your all to every little thing that you do. Um, I'm not in that space anymore. And maybe it was COVID, maybe it was partially just that I'm getting older and like realizing that stuff. It's probably a combination of the two, but
Yeah.
like it really like shone a light on, I was working like 80 hours, like I was still doing a 9 to 5, plus I had my business. And so it like I was just not home for all of the stuff. And I realized being home with my kids, and I was like, wow, this is actually like, you know, these are the moments that my kids are going to remember later on. Like they're not going to
Mhm.
care if I, was able to take them to a $300 dinner. They're going to remember these moments like, family movie night and setting up the popcorn machine and
Yep.
like, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
those moments have become more important. Like even for Christmas, like things like giving our kids experiences as opposed to
Yes.
just things.
Yeah.
Like they have so much stuff. And that's not to say we don't get them like clothes or
Oh,
things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. There's a
But
difference.
definitely like we've definitely shifted in kind of our idea of things, like even doing birthday parties is more like, like this year my son, we took him to a baseball game. He got to throw the first pitch. Like he brought a couple of friends, but it wasn't like just this, at home thing where you invite 20 people over and whatever. It was truly an experience. And so we've really tried to kind of shift our mindset to towards that.
Yeah, and I do love that because when I say this emphatically a lot that I'm not a planner of any kind, and that includes my own family party ideas. And I gotta tell you, Autumn, like last year, what I did for my daughter for her birthday was we all show up at a park, we got a pizza, and I said, come over here and let's do a group painting with, she had designed it herself. I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
She designed it herself. I helped her execute the outlines, but we were going to just paint a painting of a seven with a little smiley face and it's holding a flower. And that's what we did for her birthday instead of the let's go. But even that took a lot of planning, right? Like it's like
Sure. Oh
sending
yeah,
out
for sure.
invitations. And this year I'm doing my own, like, I'm trying to be as minimal as possible, but make the best memories possible, right? It's like my birthday's coming up, and I was like, last year I took myself to Chicago as a gift, and I was like, I'm gonna go out and do photos with my friends. That's literally that's my happy place, no expectations, just go create. So I want to do that here locally because a lot of my friends here locally didn't get, they're not going to travel to Chicago. But I was like, well, let me go to my most favorite venue. Let's go to Lizzie Gator and let's do a random theme that all my friends really love doing thematic things anyway, Beetlejuice, Frankenstein, whatever else we want to do. And I'm just going to go create there for my birthday.
Yeah.
But even that took some planning. Like, lots of questions. I was like, no, potluck. Y'all are responsible for
Right.
your own food. Just bring it. Just bring it. I literally like I want to be so hands off and hands on at the same time. I just show up. I'm gonna do photos. We're gonna eat and we're gonna sit and enjoy each other. And that's kind of where my priorities were this year. Like I want to sit with people. I want to have lunch with somebody, or I want to sit. Me and my husband have had lunch the last 2 Fridays. That's awesome. We have this great
Yeah.
buffet, right? And then for my daughter, okay, so for my daughter this year, this summer, we finally are in swimming lessons. So this is a dedicated amount of time that I'm spending with her, watching her learn
Yeah.
this new life skill. And I don't know if you've had these moments too, where you're like, you're in awe of what this time that you do have with your kids and your family, where you're just sitting there like, I get to be in this moment with them. Do you have any recent examples?
Honestly, as your kids get older and especially once they get their driver's license, like
Oh
they're
boy.
not super like interested in hanging out with you all the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
But uh, you know, more recently, so like my daughter went to prom this year.
Ooh.
So prom was in May, and um she actually asked me to go shopping with her, like just me and her. So we had
Aw.
this whole day, like we went like about 2-ish hours south. There's like an outlet mall and like, all kinds of shops and whatever. And we spent a whole day, like we did lunch, we shopped, we, went and looked for shoes, like we hung out. It was a road trip too, so we were like, hanging out in the car. And
Aw.
it's moments like those, like even the other night she had come home from work, and my husband and I were both just kind of watching TV, and she was like, "Can we watch a scary movie together?" And I said, absolutely. I am taking advantage of this time that you're just wanting to hang out. So
Aw.
I think those are the moments that like really stick out to me, especially like as she's getting
Getting
older and
older.
she's going to be
Yeah.
graduating and all of that stuff. So yeah.
No, I really love that because that's a great example of that little bit of quality time that you can sit and enjoy with each other. And my dad, we went this weekend, we went to the library. I was like, it's so hot right now.
Yeah,
And I was like, you know what? Let's go see if the library's open.
I know, right? Yeah,
And you know what we did? We actually all went together. We just kind of sat there and we're like, we don't want to sit outside. I know we just had some hurricane weather. The other day was just gorgeous. Yesterday was gorgeous weather. I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to sit outside and enjoy it. But Sunday it was still hot. Like we're just like, we don't want to go to the splash pad. We don't want to go do anything outside. And thankfully she
yeah,
was up for the library. And so we had some fun just doing that. Cause they have a great, she's 7. She's still in a very like, playful, young, and just she's okay playing with the little toys for the toddlers, stuff like that.
yeah.
So it made it fun to do something that didn't involve us sitting outside for hours in the sun.
I know it's been really muggy in even in Michigan. Like, I help out with a local pageant. So it's like a beauty pageant, but it's just for like younger kids.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and it kind of like starts out the like 4th of July celebrations is like ours starts more like mid-June, and there's like a lot of different festivals that happen and all kinds of stuff. And so this pageant starts out, and so then the pageant, the kids that are in the pageant are in the 4th of July parade, and then like the winners get to wear their sash and all that. So here I am on this float on like probably what has been the hottest day of the
yeah.
year. And I'm sitting in this black chair and I'm like, okay, I thank God that I wore something that was not going to show. Like when I stand up, my butt is probably going to be wet because I'm sweating so much. Like, oh my gosh, it was so hot. And we're just like, waving, like, are we done? Is it over yet? Like,
How many more laps do we need to take?
right. Like, how much more can I take of this? Oh my goodness.
Oh, that is really funny. I mean, yeah, it's funny but not funny. I remember one time I did one no, I take that back. I've done several little parades when I was younger, but one of them in particular when we were doing I think it was a festival for, the Native American tribes of Oklahoma, and I think they called it like a festival. And
Yeah.
so we were representing different jobs in the back of this pickup truck, like a nurse or a doctor, or
Yeah.
I think I wore scrubs just to kind of show like, stuff like that. And there is some photo floating out there of us standing in the back of this pickup truck as
Yeah.
part of this little small town parade for the festival. It was just fantastic. And when I used to do band, I did a couple of times where we did one of those winter, probably a holiday Christmas celebration, and I was playing trumpet at the time. And I don't know how many times we had to play that song over and over again, but it felt like a
Oh
long
my
time.
gosh.
One time I just threw my trumpet up to my face and didn't even blow. I was like, I'm tired.
I get that. I get that. My
Oh.
dad is a band director, so I grew up going to all those parades. I totally get that.
Oh my gosh, it was too fun because I'm telling my daughter this right now, right? Like she's at that age where she understands certain things about, and I can start telling her about the past things that I used to do. And
Yeah.
she's like, "What are you talking about? You used to play basketball." And I said, "Well, honey, it was a long time ago and they probably don't even play it like that anymore." Just telling her that, I know a few things. I've been around,
Yeah.
been around the block. But it's so fascinating to have these younger kids. And of course you've got some kids getting older and they're like, they're seeking out their own path, whatever the things that lead
Yeah.
them. Um I was gonna say, is there anything that's been, exciting you as a parent to see your kid? Kids, you have multiple. How many do you have again? Is it like four? Four kids?
I have four. So my oldest is getting married next December.
Oh,
And then um Kelsey is the one just they're like 15 months apart. And so the older two are, have jobs and are like doing their own thing for sure.
yeah.
Um, and then Ryan will be a senior this coming year. And the really interesting thing with her, she has always been like uber smart. I don't know where just
You're like, where did
like
this come from?
I know. I'm always like kind of amazed at I'm like, I could never do your work because
Yeah.
you're already way smarter than me. I don't know where this comes from. But the really interesting thing is she was probably maybe around 14 when she first started talking about like what she really wanted to do as a career, and she really has never wavered. She knew exactly what school she wanted to go to. She knew exactly what path she wanted to take to get to her eventual goal, that that she wanted to work at a fire department for a specific amount of time before then applying for the FBI. And she really wants to do arson investigation. And
Oh.
yeah. And so, like, she has researched which schools even offer like a fire science program, and like just has really been super focused since her early teens on exactly what she wants to do. And even though she is so uber focused on that, she still has never wavered with her wanting to continue to play the viola, and I mean has gotten like paid gigs and gone to camps and all this kind of stuff. And so she's not letting like the art fall behind, even though she's going into sciences.
Oh, I
um
love that.
yeah, so that's just always been very fascinating to me, how like just determined she is. Like she isn't going to let anything stand in her way to do exactly what she wants. And she knows exactly what she wants, which I did not at that age. So
I didn't
like,
either.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had an idea. I just didn't have, and I was sharing this the other day too. I said, yeah, it took me a lot of years to just eventually figure out I'd probably just be better off as a business owner or an artist.
yeah. Same, same.
Going into engineering would have been great. Yeah, I could totally work in aviation, but would I be happy is the next question.
Yeah, exactly.
So now I just enjoy flying on planes, all that little
Right.
silly stuff that I
Yeah,
love. But no, that is so cool to think about, because I do think about a lot of my friends who have kids graduating right now, or they're just now heading off to college this fall. And it's been so wonderful to hear a variety of stories just like that, where some of these kids, they really know what they want to do. And I think that's just so wonderful, because that was not me. Like I said, where it's not us, but we found our way to where we needed to be anyway, which was great. I
yeah,
felt by the second year of college that I was just wasting my time. So I was like, well, I should probably just go out and do something with my time instead of sitting in a classroom. So I was like, I'm just going to go,
yeah.
I'm just going to figure it out as I go.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely like, if I had just like started my business right away,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things I probably never would have met my girlfriend. Like,
Yep. Yep.
there's a lot of things in my life that probably would have never happened. So I'm thankful for those experiences that have
Yeah.
gotten me to where I am. But it also is like really amazing to watch when your kids, I don't want to say do better necessarily, but that's the word that's coming. You know what I mean? Like my kids are just doing more at a younger age than I did. And so it's like, okay, maybe I did something right. Like,
Oh, we totally do something right. I think that's part of it, is like understanding that we are just people trying to figure things out as we go. And some of us are parents and caretakers, and sometimes we're just trying to figure stuff out as we go. And I was
Yeah.
talking to a new parent, a new couple, a parent that are new parents to two little ones. And I was telling them, I was like, I just celebrate the fact that I kept my kid alive another year. It's not
Yeah.
even about her birthday. It's about, can I keep her alive? You know, as well as myself.
I know that is like they do not come with instruction manuals by any stretch of the imagination. And even, as somebody that has more than one kid, like
Yeah.
or even just each kid is so like their needs are so different.
Yeah.
Every single one is so individual. Like they're all so different. They have different personalities, different wants and needs. Um, so it's yeah, I mean, it is an accomplishment just to keep them alive. Like even just their like health issues, every single one is so different, like of even what their like medical needs are, that even just that basic need is so different from each one.
I love that you're sharing that, because a lot of people do know by listening to this, or they met me in person, they know I have an only child, which means I'm also getting her out socializing as much as possible,
Yeah.
because I feel like having throwing her in the midst of needing to work with other people, teamwork, sharing, learning how to,
Yes.
deal with people that may say mean things, or nice things, and just learning how to be an overall human at that point. So I know that she'll never have the sibling rivalry kind of stuff, but I also know that I'm going to do the best I can to make sure she's mostly well-rounded. It's like there's only so much I
Yeah,
can do. But
for sure.
as we're starting to kind of move into this next part of our conversation, I always ask everybody, first of all, how do you got several tattoos, one tattoo, and is there a particular tattoo story that you want to share with us today?
Um, I mean, technically I have several, but that's mostly because the one on my leg is not completely finished yet. So it's like right now just a lot of little tattoos.
Oh,
Um, so on my leg I have my family tree in zodiac signs.
very cool.
So, near my ankle, I have the Chinese symbol for love. And then on either side, I have like my mom and my dad's zodiac signs, and they are in color with their favorite colors. And then all of the rest of the zodiac signs, as you go up my leg, are all just in black. Um, and even, I mean, I have my ex-husband's zodiac sign there as well. He was a part of my life. I have my kiddos on there,
Yeah.
current husband, my siblings, all of that. Um, eventually, once it's completed, they'll all be connected by that Chinese symbol of love. That'll be like there'll be a vine coming up and connecting them all, and then there'll be a rose at the top that will also be in color. Um, so that is a work in progress. So right now it looks like a whole bunch of little tiny tattoos, um but yeah, the hope is that someday I will finish it. I think I had a fear of finishing it for a long time because I was like, well, what if I need to add someone to it? So like I kept just kind of like leaving it. But I think, like in terms of kids, like we're done. Um, I'm pretty settled on like the number of partners I have right now too.
Yep.
So I think I would be safe to finish it at this point.
Well, and I have a question that goes even further back. What was your first tattoo, and what was that experience like? I mean, did you do a lot of like research and thinking before you did it, or was it one of those it was on a whim?
So a little bit of both. Um, so my very first tattoo, actually, I had a stillborn, like
Mm,
like before any of my, like even my oldest kid, like my very
yeah.
first pregnancy was a stillborn at about 7 months pregnant. Um, so we did have like a funeral and all of that. I mean, she really was born with, 10 fingers, 10 toes, fingernail. I
Aw.
mean, she really did look
Yeah.
like, you know, so um so we named her and all of that kind of stuff. So my very first tattoo actually was in homage to her. And so her name was Star. And so it's a star with little angel wings with like a halo at the top. I had the tattoo made. So like I did do some research in that aspect where I wanted a very specific thing. So I had an artist like create it. Um, but it really was kind of a knee jerk, like I had this like trauma that happened
Yeah.
and I wanted to like pay respect to that trauma as that being my first tattoo. Like so it was kind of on a whim in that respect, but also like I did kind of put a lot of thought into it at the same time.
I was not expecting that answer, and I'm so glad that you shared that with me because as you know, I've had several, things happen to me as well. And through every trauma, I'd already been getting tattoos as a young kid. And I didn't really,
Yeah.
put thought into it, but it wasn't like as deep, meaningful. And it sounds like from you from the get-go, it was like, this is a meaningful moment that I'm going to memorialize in a way that I'll look at this, or if you can look at it, all of mine are on the backside half the time. But like having something that takes you to that remembering. And I've had people on this podcast where they say they use tattoos as a way for memory if they've had a traumatic brain injury or things like that. So I always found that fascinating why we get tattoos. And I'm so glad you answered because I was like, I didn't know what to expect. You know how many answers like you
Yeah.
get where like, oh, well, I just in college I decided I was this and I'm going to go do this. I think that's a really deep, thoughtful. Of course, I know you as a person, so this doesn't surprise me. But I'm pleasantly surprised and joyful that you shared that with me. So thank you for that. And I really, really love the family tree idea of
Yeah.
everybody who's in your little family unit that you have and that has meant something to you. And you have a symbol for every single person in your life. And I love that because like you're saying, it's open-ended until you've decided to finish it, which I think is
Right.
great.
Yeah. 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 No, I think and going back to the first tattoo, I think
Yeah,
uh it's one of those things. I don't know why it's like this topic that like holds some sort of shame or something because
yeah.
no one does anything wrong to have a miscarriage or a stillborn or whatever your situation may be. But for some reason it's like this like taboo topic that no one talks about. And um I have made it a point over the past 12 months to no longer care what other people think is taboo. And like, I'm just speaking my truth and I'm just going for it. Like, there's, there's no shame in admitting that, that this traumatic event happened. Like, you did nothing to, cause it or do anything that is like shameful in regards to that. So like, yeah, I've always been um fascinated by the fact that people think that there's so many different topics that are just like taboo to talk about. And I'm done taking that road.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. I think I may have to have you back just for that topic alone, because I think we can dive into that, right?
Yeah,
We
for
can
sure.
really dive
Definitely.
into that kind of stuff because I've experienced it. I know of a lot of listeners and people out there have experienced this kind of stuff. let's leave somebody today with one more piece of information and encouragement today. So, in the last minute and a half, what should we leave people with today?
Well, I think just that. Talk about whatever you want to talk
Mhm.
about. Stop
Yes.
holding back. We are we're all connected by our human experiences, and if we aren't able to talk about the experience, then we aren't able to be connected. So, I'm just really a huge proponent of just talking with each other and connecting through our experiences.
Very well said. Thank you so much again for connecting with me today and having this conversation. I look forward to having you back again for sure. So, thank you so much,
Definitely.
everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.